I remember back in the day of when I lived in Brisbane in Australia and go along to a rugby match at Suncorp Stadium there in Brisbane and get a few quite cold ones along Caxton Street on the way up to the stadium, and then get into the stadium. It's such a great stadium to watch rugby played, and there's a great atmosphere, particularly if the stadium's half full of Kiwis and half full of Aussies. There's always something going down there, so it was a good memory to watch the game in the weekend from Suncorp Stadium, even though I'm pretty many thousands of miles away. But to watch the Reds take on the Auckland Blues was really good to watch that game, and what a fantastic game of rugby it is. I've heard a lot of bad things about Super Rugby this year from people that haven't been even watching the games, and if you want to see a fantastic game of rugby, go and watch the highlights or watch the full replay of that game between the Queensland Reds and the Auckland Blues, because it was an absolute fantastic game in the weekend, and I'm going to talk about it in this video. G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark. If you haven't been here before, I'm a Kiwi rugby fan who's living in beautiful Cancun in Mexico, and I'm making videos on this channel all about rugby games across the world. So if you're a rugby supporter, rugby fan of any team, then why not hit the subscribe button and stick around this great global community we have right here on Inside Rugby, because it's a fantastic bunch of people, men and women from across the world, who just love watching, talking about and respecting each other about great rugby games and rugby news across the world. Now, a great game in the weekend. There was a lot of great rugby in the weekend. In fact, it doesn't matter what hemisphere you were in, you got to see some good rugby, all different styles of rugby, and that's what it's all about. Different teams bring different things to this season of rugby, and that's what I love about the game so much. You can watch a team like Munster do their thing in Joburg against the Lions, a very tactical game, a very technical game, and looking at their game management plan for that game, they played fantastically well. And then you can look at a game like the one at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane over the weekend between the Reds and the Auckland Blues. A fantastic, entertaining, open flowing game, but also with plenty going on up front. And if you're a fan of heavy, hard forward play, then this game had it all as well. And right from the get-go, the boys were giving each other a bit of a hard time there at Suncorp Stadium. No love lost, because between the old Kiwis and the Aussies, that's for sure, and we saw that again in this game over the weekend. There was an interesting start to this game because both teams were kind of feeling each other out, and they were going at it a little bit, both in the backs and in the forwards, and we saw a little bit of a kicking exchange as well, just to get some field position. But the Auckland Blues came into this game with a very, very good statistical forward pack, because they've been doing very well this season, and under their coach Vern Cotter, he's got them playing to their strengths, and that's using the forwards in close, going up hard against the opposition and getting some cheap meters when it comes to the pick and go, and also breaking through the initial defensive line by using the forwards. And I think Patrick Tuipulotu on the Auckland Blues has been playing fantastic this year, and it was no surprise to see him get a try early on for the Blues when they were adopting those tactics in particular to get over the Reds line. And it was just after a lot of different phases of play, the Reds defense capitulated just under the enormous pressure of the Auckland forwards going forward, and Tuipulotu went over for a good try for the Auckland Blues in the first few minutes of the game. But the Reds came back and they started opening up the play and started making some really good inroads into the Auckland defence, and I knew straight away that we were going to have a very open flowing game, and it was also going to be a very seesawing game. I thought the lead might change a number of times throughout this game, and this is eventually what ended up happening. Now, in the 18th minute of this game, a lesson for all rugby teams and rugby players around the world, no matter what level of rugby you played. The Auckland Blues were taking a penalty kick at goal. The ball came off the post, bounced back in the field of play, and the Auckland Blues regathered the ball because the Queensland Reds were not on their game and they weren't ready for the ball coming off the post. So the Blues got the ball, and after a couple of phases, Colin Forbes went in and scored the try for the Auckland Blues. So a good lesson there to any rugby team. Make sure you're watching the ball as it goes towards the post for a penalty kick or a drop goal, because you never know, it might come off in the wrong direction and you might be scampering in your defence. The Reds did not have that one covered, and that gave the Auckland Blues an opportunity to kick out in the lead a little bit further in this game after 18 minutes. Now, even though the Auckland Blues were ahead on the scoreboard after the first 20 minutes, the Reds really looked like they were in the game. They found this young guy on the wing called Tim Ryan. It was his first game in Super Rugby, and it was about to be a debut that he and many Australian rugby fans will never forget, that's for sure. But up until that stage of the game, I thought it was pretty even as far as the game was going. I just thought the Auckland Blues forwards were having a better time of it. Circuito at number 8 for Auckland's been playing fantastic rugby this year. He's been outstanding in that position. He's obviously being coached very well under Vern Cotter. I've got a lot of time for Vern Cotter. I think he's an extremely good coach, and he's really got this Blues team playing very, very well to their strengths, which is through their forwards. So we've seen, I think, the resurgence of Circuito this year, and also Patrick Tupoloto. I think they're both playing exceptional rugby, and then you've got guys like Dalton Papali'i, or the All Black of course, in there as well. Got some very good forwards in this Auckland team, and they've all been playing very, very well. But it was the Reds to strike next, and it came in the 24th minute. They had a very good attacking phase down in the Auckland 22. They got very close to the line, and Tumanga Allen went over for a good try for the Reds, and it finally allowed them to put some points on the board after 24 minutes in the game. Young Liner stepped up and got the conversion over, so we were back to 10 points to 7 after 25 minutes. And it was quite interesting watching young Liner at number 10. I used to watch his dad, Michael Liner, play a lot of rugby back in the day, and he was an exceptionally good number 10 for Queensland and also for the Australian Wallabies, of course. So let's see whether young Liner kicks on and has a great career as well, and keeps that name going in Australian rugby. So it was a really good game up until this stage. I thought both teams going at it really, really hard. It was an open, expansive game played on a very, very good ground in front of a very good crowd. It was an exciting. And then in the 26th minute of the game, we saw the first breakout run from this new guy, Tim Ryan, on the wing for the Reds. He made a 70-metre run against the Auckland defence, finally pulled down. And during that run, he stood up no other than Mark Telea, which is a big thing to do if you're an All Black fan. So Tim Ryan, he went for a massive run, nearly got to the line, pulled down though, and it was a brilliant run by him, and it was a very great entree to what was to come from him in the remainder of the game. So up until that stage of the game, we'd seen a lot of running in the game, but the points had stayed the same at 10 to 7. We got to the 32nd minute of the game, and we saw a yellow card in the game from Bryce Hem, the inside centre for the Auckland Blues. Really liked this guy, hadn't seen a lot of him play to date, and he was playing very, very well in this game, but got caught in a foul play movement, had no other opportunity than to get the yellow card, and off he went at the 32-minute mark. So this gave the Reds an opportunity to see whether they could put some points on the board before half-time, while Auckland were down to 14 men. It didn't work out that way though. It was an opportunity for Auckland through a penalty opportunity, and they got that kick for goal. So soon enough, after 35 minutes, it was Auckland leading 13 points to 7. The number 10 for Auckland is a guy called Plummer. He's playing pretty well this year. He started off this game without his kicking boots on, but then he came good, and by half time he'd kicked a couple of kicks over and was starting to work pretty good with his direction finder as far as his boot goes. So 13 to 7 was the halftime score, and I'm pretty sure that Vern Cotter was saying to the Auckland team, look boys, just keep doing what you're doing. I think you're going to break down this Queensland defence, and you're going to get some opportunities to score some tries in the second half as they get a little bit tired. They were doing a lot of tackles in the first half, so I thought the Queensland Reds were going to struggle for a bit of energy, but also their bench selection was going to be very important in the second half. Now, in addition to Liner playing pretty well in the first half, he was opening up the back line for the Reds. We saw Callaway getting involved as well. He was doing some good things for the Reds. Tim Ryan looked very impressive on the wing, a fast young guy. He doesn't look like a big, strong guy, but he's got a lot of speed, and he's got a good step on him as well. So I was looking forward to seeing what he could perhaps do if he got a little bit more ball in the second half. On the other wing, we've got Vinivalu, of course, who came over from Rugby League. He's been tried in the Wallabies as well. Hasn't really hit his straps in rugby union, as a lot of guys that come over and transfer to Union. They have trouble with the defensive patterns, and Vunivalu is one of those guys. He's led in a few tries in his day, but he did a couple of good things in that first half. He did actually get across the try line, but he dropped the ball, and that was probably one of those things that he needs to work on. He does a lot of this one hand putting down when he gets over the try line, and on this occasion the ball bounced out of his hand and the try was not awarded to the Queensland Reds. That would have put them in the lead at half time, and maybe we would have seen a different perfection over this whole game as a result of that. So 13-7 at half time. Pretty good reflection, I think, on the game. The Auckland forwards had a little bit more of the dominance in that first half, but I was really looking forward to this game opening up in the second half, as I anticipated it probably was going to do. Well, the second half started pretty much like the first half did, with a few jabs being thrown by both teams backwards and forwards without anyone really making any headway. But as we got to the 48th minute of the game, it really started to open up, and the Queensland Reds did a fantastic job of putting 18 phases of play together, and they really started to break down the Auckland defence. But at the same time, you've got to give Auckland defence a huge rap during this particular phase of play. They were making some big tackles, Circuito in there again, as was Tupoloto, and they were bringing these Queensland Reds down, but it was just a matter of time before Queensland finally got over and scored the try. And it was that man, Vunivalu, who didn't let his team down on this occasion. He got over for a try for the... So it was a good try by Vunivalu. Unfortunately for Liner, he missed the conversion attempt, but it was a 1-point game now at 13 points to 12 in favour of the Blues, with just over 20 minutes to go in the game. It was looking like it was going to open up, and I think that try from Vunivalu was really the start of what was about to come in this game. And it was only 1 minute later when the game really opened up, and it was that man I've been talking about, young Tim Ryan on the wing for the Reds, made a fantastic run down the line and scored the try. He looked like a seasoned professional, but this guy was playing in his first Super Rugby game. There was a lot of raps on this young guy from his club level, but he stepped up in this game and played his first game at Super Rugby, and boy, what a game he was about to have. So he scored his first try in the 49th minute. It was a great run down, 40 metres he ran, got past all of the Auckland defence. So Liner got the conversion of that try. That put the Reds in the lead by 19 points to 13, and we saw a quick change of the lead there early in the second half. But straight from the kickoff again, the Blues went on attack, and it was obvious that the Blues weren't going to give this game away without a fight. They got deep into the Reds' 22, and once again they started putting a lot of pressure on the Reds' defence through their forwards, picking and going and getting close to the line. And finally Taval got over for the Blues, a great try to them, a lot of forward movement going over. And so it was a great try by the Blues, and the conversion from Plummer was successful. So the Blues went back into the lead by 1 point, 20 points to 19, after just 58 minutes of the game. And then it was only 2 minutes later before we saw the next score in this game, and it was from that young man again, Tim Ryan. He bolted for another brilliant try and got through the Auckland Blues, and everybody in the stadium was going off their face with this young guy scoring his try, and also his teammates were getting pretty excited about it as well. He showed a lot of pace and a lot of guile to get through the Auckland defence. It was a brilliant try by young Tim Ryan. Now this guy's nickname is Junkyard Dog. I think you're going to be hearing a lot of that in World Rugby over the coming years. Now Ryan scored that try out pretty wide, and Liner unfortunately missed the conversion, but the Reds were back in the lead, 24 points to 20. And we'd seen 3 tries scored in just 8 minutes of this game. It was really... And then just 4 minutes later was that young man again, Tim Ryan, that scored the try of the game, and perhaps one of the tries of the season so far anywhere in the world. It was an absolutely brilliant try. He got the ball about 48 metres out from the try line. He danced and weaved his way through the Auckland team, came back inside around the 22 and headed straight towards the post. It was a fantastic try from this young man. He'd scored 3 tries inside 15 minutes of this game. It was absolutely insane, and he was having the debut of his lifetime. So by the time the crowd had settled down inside Suncorp Stadium, the conversion was good, and we had the Reds out by 11 points with just 13 minutes to go in this game. They led 31 points to 20. But you never write out this Auckland Blues team this year under Vern Cotter. They've got something special going on in that unit, and I knew they were going to give it a go in coming back in this game. The reserves for both teams had started to be made, and we started to see the impact on that both in the forwards but also in the back lines. And with a team that's got this much experience and it gets behind, it's the boys that have been there for a while that step up. And the next try was scored in the 68th minute, and it was to Circuito, who took off and finished off a fantastic try that was actually started by Forbes. And then Mark Philpott got involved. The ball came out to Circuito and he took off for a fantastic finish of the try, running like a running back to get the try in the 68th minute. Plummer got the conversion over, so we were back to 31 points to 27 with 10 minutes to go in the game. It was getting very exciting indeed. Now for me, the next phase of the game determined the outcome of the game, and maybe I can ask you a question in this video: what would you have done in this situation? So the Reds were ahead 31 points to 27. 73 minutes had gone in the game, and the Reds were putting on a lot of pressure on the Blues down inside their half, and they got a penalty opportunity. Now, instead of keeping the pressure on the Blues and maybe going for a try, the Reds decided to take the kick for goal, and Crichton came up and had the kick for goal for the Reds. So 74 minutes down, Crichton got the kick at goal. The Reds went out to a 34-27 lead, so 7 points in it, and the Blues had the last few minutes of the game to try and come back into this game. It was a big decision to take that penalty kick for goal, I believe. I think I would have taken the kick for touch, kept the pressure on the Blues, and gone for a 7-pointer, because at that particular stage of the game, the Reds were dominating the Blues down deep into their territory, and they would have, if nothing else, wasted a bit more time on the clock. However, the Reds decided to take the penalty kick. They were successful with it. It was a 7-point game with 7 minutes left in the game. Well, we found out in 2 minutes later that it wasn't the right decision. The Blues went on attack again, and they scored a fantastic try in the 75th minute of this game. It was under the post, the kick was good, and we were back to 34 points each with just a couple of minutes left in the game. It was an absolute cliffhanger. The crowd were on their feet. There was over 20,000+ people in Suncorp Stadium to watch this one between the Blues and the Reds, and they were getting their absolutely value for money. But the game wasn't over yet, and there was still another plot twist in the last few minutes of normal time. So the Reds restarted the game, and Circuito got the ball and went on a magnificent 60-meter run down inside the Reds territory. It was like he was a Jonah Lomu impersonator. It was a fantastic run from Circuito. I think if he hadn't been working so hard throughout this game, he probably would have scored a try, because he just ran out of gas in the last 10 meters. The defense ended up getting him, and unfortunately couldn't find a support player, but it deserved a try, that particular move, because it was absolutely fantastic, and Circuito had played a brilliant game up until that stage, and just showed it with that absolutely scintillating run. And then with 1 minute to go in normal time, a big mistake from the Reds. They threw the ball into the line out, they went over the back, and it came back to a Blues player, so they didn't secure the ball from that line out. Some would say a fundamental mistake there in that closing minute of the game, but when you're under that kind of pressure, these things happen, and it definitely happened to the Reds. The Auckland Blues went on attack again, and it was their substitute halfback Sam Nook that went over and scored a brilliant try in the 81st minute of this game. So we didn't get to golden point. The Auckland Blues snatched this one from the Reds in the 81st minute of the game. It was an absolute heartbreaker for Reds fans as they watched the Auckland Blues get that late try. The conversion was successful, so the final score in this epic encounter in Brisbane was 41 points to 31 in favour of the Auckland Blues. And as I said, the Blues have been playing fantastic rugby this year under Vern Cotter, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see them at the end of the season lifting that championship cup for the Super Rugby series. I think they're playing absolutely fantastic rugby, but there's a lot of rugby still to be played. Now, this Queensland Reds team showed what they're all about. Tim Ryan was the standout, of course, scoring 3 magnificent tries on debut in the team, and he got a lot of plaudits from TV commentators, from his fellow players after the game, and well deserved. So it's going to be really interesting now to see whether he gets a regular start in this team and whether he can back up that amazing performance that he had on debut, scoring those 3 fantastic tries within the space of 15 minutes in the second half. Now, I'm not going to say that this game was won by a particular player or a particular team playing in a very effective way. I think this game could have gone either way. It was that close at the end of it. It was one of those seesawing tussles. The lead changed on a number of occasions. Both teams were playing very, very good rugby, and it came down just to that little bit of, I guess, individual brilliance at the end that Sam Nook went over and scored that try, and Circuito had gone on that big run previously. Maybe Queensland were just a little bit more tired from doing a lot of tackling in that second half, but I wouldn't have been surprised if the Queensland Reds had got away with this game, because they'd done well enough throughout the game. It was definitely one of those games that either team deserved to win, and on this occasion the Auckland Blues got it in the end. As I said, there were some really big performances from the Auckland Blues, but I have to say that Circuito for me was a standout player, along with their captain Patrick Tupolotu. I think they did very well. Plummer had a good game. The good players for Auckland in this game. Mark Talia was busy as ever. He's one of those wingers that goes looking for the ball in the breakdown area, does those darting little runs that could almost break open a defence, and keeps the defence on the inside channels very, very focused on what their job is, and that it creates opportunities out wide. So Talia's playing that role for Auckland Blues this year in a very, very good fashion. I've also been very impressed with Forbes at fullback. He's been doing some really, really good stuff as well for the Auckland Blues, and when Caleb Clark came on in the second half, he did some incredibly damaging runs for the Blues as well. So I think he's having a good season. I've seen him doing some really, really good things. The Reds were unlucky in this game. Crichton played well when he came on. Liner was very, very good at number 10. Callaway was good at the back as well. Ryan was brilliant on the wing. Vinivalu had a bit of a mixed game. He stuffed up that try in the first half. He got the other try for them in the second half. So it was a little bit of bits and pieces from Vinivalu. The Reds forwards didn't match the Auckland forwards, but they had a good game, and they had a couple of good possessions when they were going forward in the breakdown. They were always trying to play this game at pace. So if you're one of those people out there and you've been doubting the value and the entertainment of Super Rugby this year, this was a fantastic game to watch. If you're sitting in the northern hemisphere and you've been watching some of the great rugby that's been played up there or in South Africa, make sure you check out this game, because it was an absolute hell-benter of a game at Suncorp Stadium in the weekend between the Reds and the Blues. So there we go, final score 41 points to 34 in favour of the Auckland Blues over the Queensland Reds. An absolutely brilliant game of Super Rugby, and we look forward to some more great games next weekend. If you want to stick around on the channel, the best way to do that is hit the subscribe button. Give this video a bit of a thumbs up like Michael Hooper's doing right here from Australia. And I'll see you all again very soon in the next video. Until then, stay safe, stay well everyone, and keep enjoying your rugby. Bye for now.